and then I moved up to the honor camp, and was there for almost 4 years, cause I wanted to be a police officer, but my supervisor at the time didn't wanna lose a dispatcher and wouldn't let me transfer to be police officer, so I felt I had too much potential to just sit there, and so I moved on. And then during my time up at the honor camp, I was asked to go to lunch with my husband that I got met here, and his dad asked if we would be interested in taking over the restaurant because he wanted to retire. And Chris said, hey, you've always wanted to run a restaurant, here's your chance. And I said, well, get ready to work. So we took over the Pizza Barn in September of 2015. There was nothing wrong per se with the menu and the food. People loved the food. To me, I didn't want to eat there. It was so run down. To me, it looked dirty, smelled, it rained. You had the Rainforest Cafe in there versus, it was.
And is the building in the city limits, or is it?
It's in the county.
It is in the county.
It is in the county. In fact, when I was asked to go on when I was asked to go eat there by my husband, I didn't know his family owned it the first time, and I was like, I'm not going there. That place is disgusting. And he's like, what? And I'm like, no. And then my son ended up coming, and so we went there, and then I found out his family owned it. So it was kind of like a open mouth insert foot moment for me. But it was run down. I think it goes back to that pride thing. I mean, they had pride because people were coming and eating the food, but you can see that it wasn't being reinvested in for the atmosphere. So we spent probably the first 2 years remodeling that place. We never closed down. We didn't want to close down because it was the profit that was remodeling. So we had a game plan. We had 2 weeks for each project we did, and we closed down a section of the restaurant to do those projects. So we never had to close. And I think that was our saving grace, because it's not like we had the money to just close down and renovate, without taking out loans and things.
Was it on like a septic and a well, or
no? It was on one of the water districts.
Okay.
So it was on Salt Creek Water District, but there was a lot of plumbing issues and water issues, and so when we started digging up and replacing all the lines to the main line, it was that clay stuff, so it was just like disintegrated. So there was really no system coming out of that building, so we had to replace everything. So I know what they talk about when it comes to infrastructure, having to replace things, because it's so old that some of the places I'm sure they dig up is that clay. And so, but we did.
Little 18-inch sections of that clay pipe. Oh.
Yeah, it was, but our biggest thing was fixing the outside first, because what good is it to fix the inside if you're still leaking? So we took apart the whole front of the building, rebuilt it, we did the roof, then it was like, okay, so, but our thing is I think we played it really smart. We had the food inspector come, we had the fire marshal come, and we worked with them instead of against them, and them against us. We said, look, we're buying this, we don't want to close down, we know it needs to be redone, this is our game plan. And as long as we were showing them that we were reaching these goals in that plan, they worked with us, and they worked great with us. So I think having that game plan and utilizing those people who can shut you down or keep you open or whatever, and finding out from them if our blueprints were kind of like what their guidelines were, was very beneficial. So we didn't really have anybody to educate us, so we had to use, the educators,
Mhm.
in our process. And then once we got, you know, everything remodeled, we slowly would put things into or onto the menus and whatnot. So, that's how we did this change we did in here, and so we just did it slowly. And we would just use things as, with it being a restaurant, it was easy to see if it was gonna be a hit or miss. So we just did it as a special order. And got a lot of feedback that way.
And did you just do lunch and dinner, or did you do breakfast too?
We just did dinner and pizza.
Or just dinner? Okay.
We tried opening on Sundays for lunches and things like that. It's just it was so far out there, it wasn't what worked, and our overhead was beginning to be too much trying to do day things out there, because people are on a schedule, they only have like an hour for lunch.
Right.
So by the time they drive out there, order their food, they have to inhale it and get back to work in time. So, we had to really learn, the community and what worked and what didn't work, years previous. So we were kind of lucky to have that relationship with the farmer owner, who's my father-in-law,
Right.
on what worked and what didn't work. So, so that was huge.
So you've owned it 10 years.
But it's been in our family since the 70s.
Okay.
So I think it's the longest restaurant here, to be honest.
Maybe Donna's.
I think Joe had it before Donna's.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he started in the 70s, and I don't think Donna did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is it closed now, or just transition, or
There's a
what's going on?
transition going on. So we just sold. It is, there's certain things I can and can't go into because of contracts. But there is a transition period, and